So this isn't about the YouTubers. This is about the people commenting. And what I noticed is everyone has an opinion on where you should go, but they don't start with the number one most important thing is, what do you want? This occurred to me when I used to work for the government, and
the difference, you know, and like you say, you just do not think about those things. So if we're talking about things in the states, from state to state, that is different. It's like another thing I want to say is that you may live like in the Midwest somewhere and meet somebody from Alabama, and they have an accent that's different than yours. And a lot of times people get jabs and say things, but they don't realize every aspect of different states that you live in, from Maine to Washington State to California to Miami, everyone's going to talk a little different. And so that's the same here coming to Africa. You have different countries, different languages, Swahili, French, you know, it goes on and on. And so those are really things you really need to think about and look into to better adjust to moving.
Oh, there are reasons why people leave the continent and return to their home country, whether it's the UK, the United States, Caribbean, wherever. Money, business, and community. But I guess we'll come at it from a point of view of our personal perspective. And I'm probably, and you probably give some details along the way that are our personal thing. This is something I learned from my brother-in-law, shout out to Raj. That is to just talk about from my perspective what happened. So in terms of money, we are blessed to be retired and have income flowing in for us on a consistent basis. We've also owned property and had rental residual income coming in, which is just fabulous. So that's a good thing. I know that even moving within the United States, there's this word that people are afraid of. It's called a budget. And I am guilty. I was saying this the other day. I was like, you know, I'm not really counting, knowing where every penny goes. Now, the good news is we've been blessed and things have been handled okay. But if you can develop this skill before you come to the continent, it would be very good. I would behoove you to be able to keep track of where every penny is going is something that comes to my mind. Yes,
because the spending you do there, if you're going to come to wherever you're moving to and you spend the same way, it may be a problem for you because things may be higher. You may be in a country that doesn't have a port or something like that. So things that are here, they may be very double, you know, triple in price. If you're looking for some of the items or the name brands of things that you had in the States, it's going to be different wherever you go if they don't have a port, or even if they do, it's just
the potential to be more. So let's just the reality of moving to the continent, I guess is what I'd say. Right,
because a lot of things that he said, they were very, very helpful when we were preparing to move here. And it's like a must-see because a lot of people have a mindset of, it's like they think they're moving from, like, say, New York to Atlanta or something like that. And you're still within your same country, and it's the same group of people, language, everything. It might be somewhat different, but it's totally different when you move to another country and you have to find out before you go, okay, how am I going to live? How's the language? There's a lot of things you really need to look into that a lot of times people just don't do that.
I want to even slow it down and think about what you just said. I moved from the Midwest to the DMV. That's DC, Maryland, Virginia. DMV, that's what it stands for. And that was a cultural shock. And that's what all this is about, actually, culture. It's a faster pace than where I was from in the Midwest. You've got that New York, DC corridor, Baltimore. And it's just different. I remember standing on the corner of New York Avenue at the time I was working for IBM and with a coworker, and some people came by in a car. They were women, and they said something to me, and I was like, you could have been my wife. And she was like,
you know what? Something is making me sad, angry sometimes. Like, sometimes I feel annoyed because of the things I see happening. I think it's not good, and someone has to stand up and address these issues. I've tried to address these issues in the past, but to no avail. Maybe to no avail. Some people are still not learning. The people I'm speaking of are Black Americans who are moving to Africa to find a home in Africa, to escape the racism that is happening in the United States of America. It does not have to be the United States of America alone. I'm speaking of the African diaspora, the Africans in the Caribbean, the Africans in Europe, the Africans in the Southern Americas. You know, the relationship between Black Americans and Africa has many faces. These faces are influenced by historical, cultural, and social economic factors. Despite the efforts to reconnect with the continent of Africa, the migration of Black Americans and the African diaspora to Africa is a complex phenomenon marked by various challenges, you know. We're going to address some of the reasons why African Americans are leaving USA, moving to Africa, and then again leaving Africa, moving back to the United States of America. Or maybe they may choose a specific African country, say Ghana. They might choose Ghana because Ghana is where we have lots of African Americans who followed up to the year of return. They might come there, realize something is not working out for them, and then they go back to United States, or they choose any other country in Africa or any other country outside Africa, like the United Arab Emirates. I'm told that we have African Americans moving there to live also. I just can't tend to understand, is there an African community that is really supportive in the United Arab Emirates? If you know, you can help us by, you can help me by commenting down in the comment section. So in this video, I'll be delving into the historical roots, cultural identity, and economic consideration, as well as the nuanced impact of globalization, how globalization is affecting the migration of African Americans, or rather African diaspora, from the United States to Africa, or any other parts of the world to Africa, and then bouncing back to where they came from, or bouncing to other countries. And so we are going to see a video that was done by a couple that has been living in Ghana for quite some time. They've been living in Ghana, and they noticed some things that are really making African Americans leave Africa and go back to other countries or where they came from. It's important that we listen from them, because they are the people who are in the ground. Mine, what I can give is a critical analysis, and I can only share a perspective. So without further ado, let's jump into this video and see what the couple has to say. I'll give you my feedback by the end of the video.
Just the reality of moving to the continent, I guess, is what I'd say. Right.
Because a lot of things that he said, they were very helpful when we were preparing to move here. And it's like a must-see, because a lot of people have a mindset of, it's like they think they're moving from, like, say, New York to Atlanta or something like that. And you're still within your same country, and it's the same group of people, language, everything. It might be somewhat different, but it's totally different when you move to another country. And you have to find out before you go, okay, how am I gonna live? How's the language? There's a lot of things you really need to look into that a lot of times people just don't do that.
I wanna even slow it down and think about what you just said. I moved from the Midwest to the DMV. That's DC, Maryland, Virginia. DMV, that's what it stands for. And that was a cultural shock. And that's what all this is about, actually, culture. It's a faster pace than where I was from in the Midwest. You've got that New York, DC corridor, Baltimore, and it's just different. I remember standing on the corner of New York Avenue at the time I was working for IBM, and with a coworker, and some people came by in a car. They were women, and they said something to me, and I was like, you could have been my wife. And she was like, oh, there are reasons why people leave the continent and return to their home country, whether it's the UK, the United States, Caribbean, wherever. Money, business, and community. But I guess we'll come at it from a point of view of our personal perspective. And I'm probably, and you probably give some details along the way that are our personal thing. This is something I learned from my brother-in-law, shout out to Raj. That is to just talk about from my perspective what happened. So in terms of money, we are blessed to be retired and have income flowing in for us on a consistent basis. We've also owned property and had rental residual income coming in, which is just fabulous. So that's a good thing. I know that even moving within the United States, there's this word that people are afraid of. It's called a budget. And I am guilty. I was saying this the other day. I was like, you know, I'm not really counting, knowing where every penny goes.
Right.
Now, the good news is we've been blessed and things have been handled okay. But if you can develop this skill before you come to the continent, it would be very good. I would behoove you to be able to keep track of where every penny is going, is something that comes to my mind.
Yes, because the spending you do there, if you're going to come to wherever you're moving to and you spend the same way, it may be a problem for you because things may be higher. You may be in a country that doesn't have a port or something like that. So things that are here, they may be very double, you know, triple in price. If you're looking for some of the items or the name brands of things that you had in the States, it's going to be different wherever you go if they don't have a port, or even if they do, it's just
the potential to be more. So let's get personal. So I like my Amazon Prime and I liked receiving things when we were in the States. And so I thought I didn't bring my keyboard with me. Not that I'm a great player or anything like that. I just want you to focus on. So here's this item. So I had purchased a nice Yamaha keyboard when we were in the States and I did not bring it with me. So I said, well, I'll either go to the music store or purchase through Amazon. So I went to the music store and this thing was, I think, not twice, but almost triple the cost. So you're talking a regular $300 to $400 item, and they were advertising it quite proudly at like 1,800 USD. And I was like, what? No, I don't think so. So let me get online and go to my trusted Amazon. Now the price on Amazon is pretty good. I was like, I'll just order it. They didn't have the exact model I want, so I got something else. But what hit me was the fact that you have to have an agent for something coming into the country, because they think that you might be selling it. So you have to prove that it's for personal usage. There's costs like VAT costs, taxes, and so forth. So the item almost ended up doubling in cost. And that's important to know because I may not have considered that in terms of budgeting and keeping track of my pennies. So I want to be personal here so you get an idea. You come with your eyes open.
Right. I want to say another thing on the same thing that he said. Mine's on another thing that's personal to me too, is that I like eating healthy. And I wanted some protein powder that I ordinarily get when I'm in the States. And so when I ordered it, I know the price, but then because it's coming where we are and we don't have a port, it was going to be an extra like $30 or something like that. And it took a while getting here. It didn't come to the house, it went to the post office. So it had all these different stops before I actually got it. But those are the things that sometimes happen. You might pay whatever the item is, but then there's going to might be something added on to it, and you're like you said, paying double for it. So these are different, every situation's different, but we're just telling you what happened with us.
We were in the grocery store, very nice grocery store. So nice, I actually took pictures in there. I probably wasn't supposed to do that, but anyway. I said, you know, I think I want to get some ice cream, I'm gonna try it. And this was about, what, 2 quarts?
Yeah.
And, oh, the measuring system. In the United States, we're using the inches and yards, the U.S. metric system, and they're not when you get out of the United States. I don't care who, where, they are not, all right? And so that's another thing you have to have in your mind is the kilos and the metric system needs to be a part
Kilograms,
of it.
all those things,
So I had, but I'm speaking to you in English, so I had the 2 quarts of ice cream. And I want you to take a guess as to how much that costs. Now, of course, I'm going to tell you, but some of you like this pause that I'm giving you. You can hear our neighbors and the kids playing, whatever. All right, now here's the answer. It was $14. for that container of ice cream.
Right.
And it was good. Don't get me wrong. Strawberries, oh, there were real strawberries floating around in this thing. But the deal is that this is just me trying to get personal and tell you what our experience has been in terms of items and the cost of things. And when Marlene's talking about a port, wow, it's just unbelievable because the need to ship something from a city with a port may require trucking. It's going to cross country lines. And the other thing to consider is if you were in charge, let's say you were a king of a country, or you would want your people and your products to be purchased prior to those that were outside of your country. Right. So you have to think of these kinds of things, okay? That comes to mind. I'm thinking about food, and not what that we buy, but the way we eat and so forth.
Yeah, it is different. Like you say, you come here with a mindset of all the things that you've always eaten your whole life, and so coming here, they're not going to have all the stores that you're used to seeing, the restaurants, the type of food, and even if you do see some food that might be Mexican or Spanish, whatever, it's still somewhat different than what you're used to. It's like you're thinking, wow, they made it with that, you know, so it's according to how they like to make it, you know. So those are the things to consider in reference to when you're trying to get certain food. And so over time, we've got to figure, okay, if I want food a certain way that I'm used to it, I'm going to have to make it myself probably. So, you know, those are things you have to think about. Yeah.
So when you go to a restaurant, and I haven't been to some of the nice restaurants that you have that have the steak and so forth, and it was really good. So because you're talking about, as a friend of ours, shout out to Don, would say, no GMOs, no drugs in the chickens. They're normal size. They're not walking around like they're auditioning for a role in the movie The Incredibles. The chickens and produce is the right size. The thing is, though, there's not a lot of, they don't specialize in spices here. That's somewhere else. Yes. So their food may be a certain way, or they like a particular spice, like pepper. I understand the steaks were extremely cheap, which very good price.
They were very good. They were very good.
But the deal is, you don't want to be eating out like that on a consistent basis, because that's one of your most expensive. Well, one of your largest expenses is the food. And when you do go buy something someone else already cooked, even though it's at a discounted price, you still got to take into consideration, is it going to last you more than one day? Are you going to get seconds out of that? Are you going to eat again? And even driving to be able to get there, that's another thing to consider, because we were using a driver who we liked a lot, but we didn't realize we could make a trip for a fraction of the cost if we just used the local taxi service, which was excellent, as a matter of fact. Not the latest model cars, but then again, none of the vehicles are the latest model. Get used to that. I guess the thing is, though, I even took a moto taxi several times. A motorcycle, you just hop on the back of it, that's their taxi. They're all over the place, just like in China or in India, okay? But the deal is, all of these things add to your cost and your money going out the door. So you need to make sure you're counting your money, and you got a nice income source that's coming in on a consistent basis.
Yes, I wanted to make one point also. It's like, and that's getting back to food or things you purchase. I'm noticing, this is what I did in the States. When I got, like, we drink almond milk or certain dairy products or certain things, I was used to them lasting, once I opened them, like 9 days. Well, it's different here with the product we got. It lasts maybe 5. It says it on the carton, just like it does in the States. But those are the things you have to look into, because when I first got here and I got the almond milk, I didn't think about it. I just started keeping it for the amount of days I was used to. And I said, oh, I need to read this and see what it says. And I'm realizing it's the less amount of days. And so those are the things you have to look at too. Things that maybe you were used to getting of certain products that maybe had an expiration date different in the States, it may be different here. So just little things like that you may have to, check out.
And the reason why on that expiration is a good reason. Again, they're not putting chemicals and preservatives in things because they're forbidden, depending on which country in Africa you're in. But most of them, it's closer to its original source, and therefore it's going to break down quicker. It's better for you, it's healthier, but it's also not going to last as long. If you think about it, the reason why things last so long is because of the chemicals and the way it's pumped up.
Right.
That's why it lasts so long, and those things are happening in your body also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And another thing, I know we've probably beaten this up, but I'm going to say it anyhow. There may be a certain, like you say, item that you're used to getting. You'll have to think of alternatives. I mean, we like say, the original Listerine. It comes in like the golden color. Well, they don't have that here. They have Listerine in different little flavors, but they do not have, at least not that I've seen, so we've been here, of that kind. So those are the things of just trying to have a mindset when you come and looking and shopping. You're going to have alternatives to maybe what you're used to. So just it's an adjustment, and you have to decide, well, can I adjust? You know, what can you do? So
the thing that comes to my mind is, I guess, consumerism. I was going to say this, but why? We saw one of our sons many years ago while he was in college and taking a particular course, had a video that he wanted us to watch. And I had never seen it. You've probably seen it before in the audience. I hadn't. And it basically, this is the bottom line, that we are brought up in a Western society, a Western mentality of consumerism. And you are either producer or consumer. And we're pretty much trained to be consumers. Trained how? Through all the commercials, through the fact that going back to school, you buy new tennis shoes, I used to love getting my new clothes to go back to school. Why? What was wrong with what you wore last year? Or planned obsolescence. I think appliances and things used to last more than at least 10 years or something like that. Now they're planned to go out of style or break down in 4 years or some period of time, 3 to 6 years. Planned obsolescence, so that you go and buy something else. So in terms of knowing yourself and really getting your mindset together first, get your mindset together first. By that, what I mean is so that you're not easily tripped up by a little thing that she just mentioned, which is if you prefer the gold Listerine or you prefer the blue one or something like that. There's a good chance where you are probably isn't going to have it. There's a good chance there's no air conditioning that we have here in this house. But then again, we're in a climate that is one of the best in the world. And so you don't really need it. But if your mind automatically, naturally goes to, well, I'm going to need the good Listerine. I'm going to need the particular type of shaving or toothpaste or ice cream. I gotta have my Ben & Jerry's, or I've got to have certain things. Then you're already losing before you get on the plane to come here, because your mindset has not left battle. Basically, it has not. You're still under that. And if it helps, I would like to offer this. Please think about what you want. I think that I just observe, so I only have anecdotal evidence. I don't have clear receipts for this, but consider whether or not you think this to be true. And that is, I find that people don't take the time to find out what they want to make a decision. And an example of that might be, well, I've decided that I prefer to be near the ocean. I need a hot climate. That comes with a hot climate by default. I want to be near the ocean, and I'd like to be in an international audience, and then commit to it. But people don't take the time to think, what do you really want? And then go do your detective work and see, all right, what's available that are options I can consider. I read comments of a lot of YouTubers. So this isn't about the YouTubers. This is about the people commenting. And what I noticed is everyone has an opinion on where you should go, but they don't start with the number one most important thing is, what do you want? Yes. This occurred to me when I used to work for the government, and
have a critical analysis of what we can gather from these couples, and also what myself I have gathered that is here, that is really making African Americans leave Ghana, leave the specific African country, going back to the United States of America, or rather going back to other countries. So remember, I said that we have the historical context, we have the cultural identity, we have the economic prospect aspect, we had globalization. I told you globalization is also affecting African Americans in Africa. So it's time we delve into how this historical context is affecting African Americans. You know, the history of Black Americans is deeply intertwined with the transatlantic slave trade. I pity those who say the transatlantic never existed. So the transatlantic slave trade forcibly brought millions of black people to the Americas. Despite this painful past, there has been a growing interest among Black Americans in tracing their roots back to Africa. However, the historical trauma, the disconnection caused by centuries of separation, and the lack of tangible ties often pose significant barriers to a seamless reconnection. An African American might come to an African country, they fail to connect because of the traumas, you know. In as much as it was done to the ancestor, the people who are children or the grandchildren of the ancestors may not have the historical connection with the people now who are living in the continent, because some African Americans feel like Africans betrayed them to those people. And I think we should look past all these. We understand people have different thoughts, people have different perspectives. If they feel like they don't connect, then we can't really force anyone to be anywhere. We can only advise them, but we can't force them, you know. The second one, which I notice, is cultural identity. Cultural identity plays a pivotal role in the decision-making process of migrating to Africa. You know, Black Americans often grapple with a dual identity, being both African and American. The quest to explore and embrace their African heritage can lead to a desire to establish a more direct connection with the continent. However, the complexities of cultural identity and the evolving nature of diasporic ties contribute to the challenges faced by those seeking to relocate. You move to Africa, be like the Africans. I think I've spoken this many times. I'm just trying to emphasize, because I never spoke on how globalization is affecting African Americans. And that is what we are finding different, and an additional thing to this information I'm sharing right now, because African Americans, the reasons why they live are closely similar to one another, you know. So we have the economic consideration, the third point, you know. Despite the cultural and historical motivation, practical challenges, especially economic factors, cannot be overlooked. Migration requires significant financial resources, and establishing a new life in Africa demands a careful consideration of job opportunities, access to education, and overall economic stability. Economic disparities between the United States and many African nations may act as both a motivator and a barrier to migration. You know, that's another thing I discovered. So let's go to the fourth one, which is globalization and connectivity. The contemporary era of globalization has transformed the world into a more interconnected and accessible place. This has facilitated communication and travel, you know, enabling Black Americans to engage with Africa in ways that they were once challenging. However, globalization also presents challenges such as the impact of westernization and the potential dilution of authentic African cultures, making the quest for a genuine connection more complex. This is a problem. This is a very big problem, you know. We had those sisters who are twerking those sisters were working in the slave dungeons of Ghana. To them, they thought they were doing a right thing, but to Africans it was an insult. Also to other African Americans it was an insult. This was not a nice thing to see. Africans have restored, Africans have kept the slave dungeons. They didn't demolish the slave dungeons, so because they respect it. That is a place where people suffered. The slave dungeons, people really suffered there. It was so disrespectful of the sisters to come and twerk on top of the slave dungeons, because people are really suffering. As my friend had put it, at these places women were being, I quote, raped by the colonizers, which is not a very, very decent image, you know. And some women of African American decency would come there and twerk. I find this so disrespectful, you know, in as much as we are fighting for globalization and connectivity. This is not connectivity, this is abomination. This is an abomination, and it's really not good. So it's time we conclude, you know. The migration of Black Americans to Africa is a nuanced phenomenon shaped by historical legacies, cultural complexities, economic considerations, and the evolving dynamics of a globalized world. While the desire to reconnect with Africa persists, individuals face numerous challenges in navigating the complexities of identity, trauma, and the practicalities of relocation. You know? Now, understanding these multifaceted factors is essential for comprehending the motivation and obstacles surrounding the movement of Black Americans to Africa. In as much as there is this come here, go there, African Americans need to consider these four factors. We have globalization, we have the economic factors, we have the cultural factors, and then we have the historical factors. Just some Black Americans they can't get out of the trauma that happened in the slave dungeons, because in as much as it happened 400 years ago, the memories are still fresh. The memories are still in the mind, because we have the Cape Coast Castle, we have the Elmina Castle right over there in the coast of Ghana. Anytime a black person looks at that dungeon, they are reminded of something. They are reminded of the systematic racism in USA. They are reminded of why they are looked down upon in the United States of America or any part in the world. We've seen the news. The news are speaking for it. I'm not speaking out of ignorance. I'm speaking out of knowledge, because I have watched black people are always racially profiled in the United States of America. When they move here, they should find peace. They should find a sanctuary. They should find family. They should find a good place to rest, because the United States has really had a lot with them and for them. So it's high time you move to Africa, and if you want to try and have a nice, good stay, follow these things I've told you. Keep in mind that opinions differ, and truth does not differ. And I believe historical factors are truth, economic factors are truth. We have globalization, which is also truth. Somebody might not like a food in Ghana, but you might like it. That's an opinion. That's why I don't like sharing opinions. I like sharing truths. So without further ado, subscribe to the channel. Do subscribe to the channel. Join my Patreon. Give a super thanks if possible. I will so much appreciate. And also show some love by sharing the video. I know I've asked a lot, but do which you find okay. See you in the next video.